The Capcom vs. games are never afraid to get pretty obscure with their character choices, ranging from characters only really known in one region of the world, like Jin and Saki, to forgotten characters from early in the company's history, like Eagle. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 famously added 3 original characters to its roster on the Capcom side, and while 2 of them were 100% new, the third, while still being created specifically for Marvel 2, is connected to one of the oldest games in Capcom's history. SonSon's home village was one day struck by a mysterious disease, a disease that, unbeknownst to her at the time, was due to the awakening of Abyss, a being that threatened to kill all life on Earth. SonSon left the village to seek out answers, running into Ruby Heart along the way and joining her cause, their goals aligned. If you know your classic Capcom arcade games, the name SonSon might be familiar to you. It's the name of the second video game Capcom ever made, releasing in July of 1984, just 2 months after Vulgus, their first video game. SonSon is one of many pieces of media that largely riffs off of Journey to the West, a famous Chinese novel featuring the exploits of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Journey to the West has been referenced and homaged in way too much media to reasonably count here, though Dragon Ball is perhaps the most famous example internationally. SonSon looks like a scrolling arcade platformer with multiple vertical planes, but in truth, it's closer to a shoot-'em-up or a run-and-gun game. If you've ever played SNK's Cycle Soldier, which released 3 years after, that game borrows many of its basic mechanics from SonSon. As the game automatically scrolls to the right, SonSon uses his staff to destroy obstacles and enemies, the level number being displayed on giant rocks that occasionally scroll by. The goal of the game is to make it to the Buddha statue at the very end, riffing on Journey to the West and Sun Wukong's ultimate goal of reaching India and obtaining enlightenment. The SonSon in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is noticeably not the original, and even more notably, female. That's because this SonSon is in fact the granddaughter of the SonSon from the original arcade game. Some materials have referred to her as SonSon III, though no official materials internally from Capcom have corroborated that. Interestingly enough, the development team for Marvel 2 did originally play around with the idea of the original SonSon being in the game, some concept art for his regular form as well as his giant ape form being showcased in the feature for Marvel 2 in Arcadia magazine around the time of the game's original arcade release. Despite being made for this game specifically, SonSon's moveset features various references to both the original SonSon arcade game as well as Journey to the West, all of which I'll be going over to the best of my ability. SonSon's voice in Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is provided by Mayumi Izuka, who is also the longtime voice actor of Tron Bone, voicing her in pretty much every game Tron has ever been in, Marvel 2 included, though in that case it's largely via using archive audio from her spin-off game. She's also the voice actor of Misty in the Pokemon anime, reprising the role even after Misty stopped being a series regular. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of SonSon's moveset, I actually want to talk about the original game and its legacy a bit more. Being one of the earliest Capcom games ever made, it's a game that staff at the company have expressed something of a fondness for, and this is reflected in how many times it's been referenced in other games. So, let's take a brief look at the history of SonSon and its legacy at Capcom. The original SonSon released in 1984, the lead designer and artist being Yoshiki Okamoto, and to say that this man is Capcom royalty would be one hell of an understatement. Okamoto directed some of Capcom's earliest arcade hits, including the shoot-'em-up 1942 and Gunsmoke. He'd step into more of a producer role in the late 1980s, and was chiefly responsible for recruiting Akira Yasuda to Capcom, though you might know him better by his pseudonym, Akiman, one of the artists and designers that would go on to give Capcom its enduring visual identity from the 1990s onwards. SonSon itself would be ported to the Famicom in 1986, exclusively in Japan. This port looks decent in screenshots but is pretty choppy in motion, very similarly to a lot of Capcom's early arcade conversions on the Famicom. That port was done by Micronix, who'd also been responsible for Ghosts and Goblins' infamous NES port. SonSon pops up pretty regularly in Capcom arcade compilations, being one of the games available in Capcom Generations 3 for the PS1 and Saturn, being mostly arcade perfect, and featuring an optional arranged soundtrack as well. It's also one of the games available in Capcom Arcade Stadium on modern platforms, and is included for free whenever you download the game, so if you want to give SonSon a try, you can literally do so right now for no cost. What tends to go overlooked is the fact that SonSon actually has a direct sequel made by Capcom, SonSon 2, released in 1989. Of course, it's overlooked mostly because it's to this day a Japanese-only game that only ever released on the PC Engine, though an English fan translation exists for it. SonSon 2 is notably one of the only original games internally developed by Capcom for that platform, most of their other games being arcade ports, a lot of which were ported by Hudson Soft. Unlike the original game, SonSon 2 is a straight-up action platformer. There's no more auto-scrolling, and the game has comparatively more complex map and level design. The game opens similarly to the first game, SonSon's friends being kidnapped by a silhouetted figure who's pretty obviously the Ox King, and SonSon racing off staff in hand to rescue them. SonSon has to traverse several somewhat open-ended levels and rescue his friends, being able to spend the money he gets via collecting fruit on upgrades to his staff and items needed for general game progression, avoiding enemies like falling slime monsters and vicious plants. Hardcore old-school Capcom fans might note this game's eerie similarities to another Capcom arcade classic, Black Tiger, which uses the exact same level structure and even has some of the same enemies. This is because SonSon 2 apparently began development as a PC Engine port of Black Tiger, but along the way, the decision was made to reskin it as a sequel to the original SonSon arcade game. According to the game's composer, Manami Matsume, perhaps best known as the composer of the first Mega Man game, SonSon 2 was largely headed up by Yoshiki Okamoto, which makes sense. The arcade original was his pride and joy after all. Honestly, it's a pretty fun game, though not really easy to play legally outside of original hardware since it's never been re-released to my knowledge. SonSon as a series would go on to be referenced in a ton of Capcom arcade titles after its release, from small things like SonSon being one of the high score names in games like X-Texas and Sidearms, to some games even using items from SonSon as well. SonSon and his friends also cameo in quite a few games, one of the first notable instances being Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, where SonSon can be seen in the background of the China stage. This would be followed up with perhaps the most involved SonSon-related crossover outside of Marvel 2, Pocket Fighter. Here, SonSon or one of his friends can be seen flying by during fights, but this actually serves a purpose. If you super jump and attack him or any of his friends, they can drop items and gems to power up your character even further during a fight. They fly by pretty regularly too, so you won't have to wait too long in the fight to see for yourself. His Senko's auto combo also has her transform into SonSon for some of her attacks as well. Zack and Wiki on the Nintendo Wii has various collectible treasures based on some of Capcom's classic arcade and console games, some of which are based on SonSon as well. On top of that, one of the minigame themes is a remix of the main SonSon background song. Take a listen. This one's not a Capcom game, but 3D Game Heroes of all things also references the Famicom port of SonSon, with one of its load screens recreating that port's box art. SonSon's had quite a few references in Street Fighter as well. Perhaps the most famous is the convenience store in the background of Ryu and Guy's stage in Street Fighter Alpha 1 named after SonSon, also doubling as an in-universe parody of the real-life Lawson's brand of convenience stores. This reference is also retained in the Sakazaki Dojo stage in Capcom vs SNK 1, where if you go all the way to the stage's left, the background reveals that said dojo is being built right across the street from the same SonSon store seen in Alpha 1. This SonSon store gag gets used in a few other games, notably Cannon Spike, Quiz Nairo Dreams, and even Street Fighter V. SonSon is also one of the arcade games on rotation that can be played in the Battle Hub in Street Fighter VI, and the World Tour quest also references the game, with SonSon being a password you need to relay to an NPC in Neishao. Said area also has a SonSon cabinet that allows you to play the game whenever you want as well. Lastly, SonSon also has a card obtainable in Teppen. I think that's enough examples of how much Capcom seems to like the game, so without further ado, let's head right on into SonSon's appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Being one of the game's new original characters, SonSon is one of the characters available immediately on the Capcom side of the roster without having to be unlocked. But just how does she stack up to everyone else? SonSon doesn't see all that much use in competitive play, but she has some pretty unique tools that set her apart from some of the other more underused characters in Marvel too. Between her air dash, her crawling, and her wall walk special moves, SonSon has some of the best mobility of any non-flight character in the game. Thanks to her supers being DHC friendly and some helpful assists, she can more or less slot into any team and be of use. And she's great at harassing opponents mid-range with her projectile, her staff normals, and her command normal. SonSon is incredibly lacking defensively though, and kinda blows up if she makes a mistake that gets her hit. Her best pokes are also somewhat committal, making them riskier to throw out in neutral. And she can't really do all that much damage on her own. She really needs assists to be able to combo into all but one of her supers. SonSon is notably one of a handful of characters on the Capcom side of the roster with an air dash. Even more notable is the fact that she can air dash either forward or backwards, giving her a somewhat safe way to disengage from an opponent. This ability is directly lifted from Journey to the West, specifically Sun Wukong's ability to use the Cloud Somersault, which enables him to travel long distances. It can't transport regular humans for the most part though, as mortals by nature are weighed down by their sins and thus too heavy to carry. Arguably, the most famous interpretation of this in popular media is the Flying Nimbus in Dragon Ball, which also carries over the trait of only being able to carry those pure of spirit. SonSon has only one command normal, Gansai Hegiretsu, done with forward and heavy punch. SonSon extends her staff, which stretches out a few character lengths. This can hit OTG, and the distance is quite nice, making it a valid poke. However, it also extends her hurt box a bit, so you do need to be careful as all your opponent needs to do is get a clean hit on the staff to clip SonSon herself. It does hit OTG and can be comboed into her heavy kick though, which is nice. The staff SonSon uses is the Rui Jingu Bang, a magical weapon that can extend as long as its user pleases. SonSon inherited this from her grandfather, the original SonSon, who used it in his games, but of course, the weapon is also directly lifted from Journey to the West itself. In fact, the original SonSon is also positioned as the grandson of Sun Wukong, and this also plays into the SonSon name itself. Being Sun Wukong, or Son Goku as the name is translated in Japanese as grandson, that literally makes him a son of Sun. The move name itself translates to Rock Smashing Wall Splitter, likely named for all of the rock monsters and rock obstacles the original SonSon has to deal with in the original arcade game. SonSon's first special move is Xianbu, done with a quarter circle forward and punch. Yeah. SonSon quickly takes a few strands of her own hair, which transform into 3 smaller monkeys that travel forward and fan out. This can be done in the air as well, and the punch strength determines how fast they travel. This one's great for counter zoning, as the monkeys can block long-range single-hit projectiles. This is another technique lifted from Journey to the West, specifically the Shenhua Shenfa, a technique that roughly translates to body beyond the body. Sun Wukong takes strands of his hair, chews them, and blew them into the air, transmuting them. The specific instance of creating smaller monkeys from this comes from Journey to the West's second chapter, though it's said that he can transform said hairs into anything he pleased. Doing a Dragon Punch motion and punch gives you Satan Rengeki. SonSon spins her staff and leaps upwards, hitting multiple times on the way up. This is SonSon's main anti-air and notably can be done in the air as well, making for a great way to end air combos. Satan Rengeki translates to equaling heaven chain attack, which is a reference to Sun Wukong's title in Japanese, Satan Taisei, or equaling heaven great sage. Sun Wukong's appeared and been referenced in many pieces of video game media under some of these names. For example, he appears as a demon in the Shin Megami Tensei series, sometimes under the name Wukong. In Persona 5, Persona itself a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, he appears under the name Satan Taisei, is the second form of Ryuji's initial persona you get from maxing his social link. He's also appeared in fighting games as well, World Heroes Perfect in particular being a standout example. Kingen no Hisago is done with a half circle back and punch. This has SonSon pull out a giant gourd as she attempts to suck the opponent into it. If successful, she starts cooking the opponent before things humorously backfire and explode, though she takes no damage. For whatever reason, nearly every newcomer added to Marvel 2 has a blockable hit grab, and this move is one of them. Even if you're in range when she uses this, simply blocking will save you, though she does have a pretty funny whiff animation for this. There is a lot going on here in terms of Journey to the West references going on in this attack, so let's hit them one by one. The attack's name translates to Gourd of Gold and Silver, a direct reference to Chapter 34 of Journey to the West, wherein Sun Wukong encounters the Silver and Gold Horned Kings, who trap him in a red gourd, done so by speaking a target's name. Sun Wukong's able to trick the two into thinking that he died by making a clone that looked dissolved while transforming himself into a fly to escape, and then transforming into a demon, collecting the gourd from the two unsuspecting brothers. While SonSon attempts to cook the opponent, she uses a curious object to fan the flames. This is the Banana Leaf Fan, a magical object that summons fierce winds when swung. In Journey to the West, it initially belongs to Princess Ironfan, who has to be tricked by Sun Wukong into surrendering it. Princess Ironfan's another Journey to the West character that's been adapted quite a few times. Chi-Chi in Dragon Ball is a notable example, one of her earliest appearances in that series revolving around finding the Dragon Ball series equivalent to the object, the Bancho Fan, to put out a fire in her father's castle, Ox King himself also being another blatant Journey to the West nod. Iron Queen in the old Archie comic Sonic the Hedgehog continuity is another character based on Princess Ironfan as well. Fusetsuzan, which translates to wind-splitting slash, is done by mashing the punch buttons. SonSon spins her staff around, moving her slightly forward and hitting multiple times. This can also be done in the air. Wall walk is done with a quarter circle back and kick. SonSon jumps on the wall behind her and proceeds to run along the edges of the screen. While doing so, she can do one of two things, depending on the button pressed. Pressing any punch button simply has her drop from whatever position on screen she's in during the animation. Pressing kick, on the other hand, has her do a quick dive kick that notably hits overhead. This is one of those rare moves like Jin's throw attack that's kind of visually scuffed if you play the PS3 and 360 ports of Marvel 2 in widescreen mode, since this move was only designed with 4x3 screens in mind. It doesn't affect the attack's utility, but it does look delightfully goofy. Hofuku Zenshin is done with a half circle forward and kick. SonSon crawls forward a short distance. This is a deceptively useful move in terms of getting SonSon out of some undesirable circumstances, as she can low profile a bunch of stuff while she's crawling. She can also cancel the crawl into any of her standard normals as well. SonSon's first hyper combo is Tenshi Sukan, which translates to passing through heaven and earth, done with a quarter circle forward and 2 punches. SonSon throws her staff into the air and makes it gigantic, slamming it down into the enemy, hitting multiple times. This is notably the only super that SonSon can reliably combo into on her own, being able to do so from her Satan Rengeki special move. Doing a quarter circle forward and 2 kicks motion gives you pow. A giant POW icon appears, and if the enemy is hit, they're transformed into a giant fruit, which SonSon promptly eats, dealing damage. This move is incredibly slow, so you'll likely want to capture assist like Web Ball to land this reliably. The move itself is a reference to the very same power-up icon in SonSon. Grabbing it there turns all of the enemies on screen into fruit. The POW icon has history dating back to Capcom's first game, Vulgus, appearing as a power-up there. It appeared in subsequent games such as XX's, where it also served a similar purpose as in SonSon, turning all on-screen enemies into food. It'd go on to appear in games throughout Capcom's history, such as in the Ultimate All-Shooters minigame in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, as well as the 2014 Strider game, where collecting them unlocked new bonus content. Quarter circle back and 2 punches initiates SonSon's final super, Monkey King. SonSon transforms into a giant ape and can perform several unique actions for a short amount of time. Pressing light punch has her swing at the opponent, pressing heavy punch does an uppercut, and any kick button has her shoot out a burst of flames from her mouth. The fire burst has the most damage potential, and SonSon actually has super armor for the duration of this hyper combo, but that can easily be taken advantage of by opponents that know where to be when she pops this particular super. While Sun Wukong did have a giant form reserved for the most taxing of fights in the original Journey to the West novel, Monkey King's form here more so references Japanese folklore and pop culture about giant apes. Again, the Oozaru transformation in Dragon Ball being a standout example. The name Monkey King itself, however, is arguably the most well-known of Sun Wukong's monikers. SonSon's first assist is a healing peach. This is exclusively an assist move in SonSon's moveset and heals a bit of life if touched. The best way to grab it is to walk backwards into SonSon when she's called, protecting her from being hit by a stray attack in the process. Fruit is a very big part of both SonSon games, increasing your score in the first one, and also serving as currency in the second game. Her second assist is Shienbu. Her third assist is Satan Rengeki. Here are SonSon's colors. You know, it's pretty cool that Capcom found a way to get their second oldest video game ever represented in the Versus games in a playable fashion, even if in a somewhat roundabout way. Though the original SonSon is definitely always going to be in the hearts of those that grew up with it, I think a case can be made that his granddaughter has usurped them in terms of being easily recognized, just by nature of being a part of one of the most revered fighting games of all time. We've already talked about the original SonSon's cameos elsewhere, but SonSon the Third's also gotten some love here and there. She's a card in the second SNK vs. Capcom Card Fighters Clash game on Neo Geo Pocket Color, and she appeared along with her grandfather in the mobile card strategy game Street Fighter Cross All Capcom. She's also one of the characters that appears on the poster in the Days of Future Past stage in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, though sadly, she's marked as slain. That's going to do it for this video. As always, thanks for watching, and a special thanks to the patrons that support the channel. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.